It's been 1 year with the King M18-20 Firewood processor. We're going to do a 1-year review. We're going to talk about the good stuff, the bad stuff, things I would like to change, if I could do it all over again. I know in one of my videos I got a lot of questions about how much the King cost. Here's all the information from King. This is their website. Go there. You can very easily see the pricing and configure your own machine just the way you want it, and then they'll give you a quote and get in touch with you. So we'll start off with an overall walk around the machine. I'm going to start with the engine and we'll work our way around. The engine is a Briggs & Stratton Vanguard 35 horsepower engine. It has sufficient power for this machine. It has a 3-section hydraulic pump. The engine has its own oil filter. It's 2-cylinder. It's reasonably quiet for what it is. I can't read the group number on the battery, but the battery is large. The only thing the battery does is start this little engine. The next component we'll look at is the clamp. The clamp is just a heavy piece of steel with a hydraulic ram. The clamp comes down on the log right before you cut. It's a manual operation. There's no automatic clamping. You have to do that manually. It has a 1-gallon bar oil reservoir, and it has a small fuel pump. This is a fuel pump that is in use for bar oil. The fuel tank is 20 gallons. I can run all day on a tank of gas. We have a sight tube here that shows you your fuel level. The feed for the engine is in this end, and we come over here and we have a priming bulb, which I've never used, by the way, and a fuel filter. This machine has multiple stabilization jacks, so when you're dropping logs on it, it's not shaking all over the place. It has electric brakes, wiring harness, a standard trailer plug. It has a breakaway emergency brake, so if this were to become disconnected, your vehicle, while you were towing it, this pin will pull out and it will engage the brakes and stop the machine from rolling down the highway. The trailer hitch is a 2 5/8 inch trailer ball. I have the 2-legged live deck. These are 6 feet long. These are fully adjustable up and down. I did not get the hydraulics on this, so these are manual stowage, and they are very solidly built. They are heavy. The live deck is driven by a small hydraulic motor and chain. The 2 legs of the live deck are connected. A 40-gallon hydraulic oil tank with a dual filter. So this is on the return side of the hydraulics. So as you're using the hydraulics, as the hydraulics are circulating, everything returns through here while it's hot, goes through the filters and returns to the tank. The suction side of the tank is down here. With this size of a tank, it gives you ample capacity to keep the oil cool. Well, reasonably cool. When you're running in really hot weather, this gets very, very warm. The operator controls are very well laid out. The splitter control is over here. The saw up and down. The Infeed conveyor is here, so we have saw up, saw down, log feed, and log back, and that runs the Infeed trough. All the other controls, so all of these controls you operate with your right hand. The splitter you can operate just with your left hand, or whatever works for you. But it's well laid out. We have an hour meter down here. When I ordered the machine, I did not order an operator platform. Cordking called me and said, hey, we have a machine that through an unfortunate circumstance, the guy was not able to purchase or, complete the sale. So this one became immediately available. And it just so happens that it was almost exactly what I wanted, with the addition of this operator platform. The other advantage to the operator platform is you can stand up on it and reach in to deal with resplits, or to deal with a stuck log, or a log that didn't fall into the splitter box quite right. So the operator platform is a great idea. We have a plexiglass shield that shields you from most of the sawdust and oil and debris that goes flying off the saw. I wanted an integrated conveyor, so we have the Cordking CV12. This conveyor uses a belt with bars on it, and it works. It works pretty well. I think I would rather have had a chain type conveyor, but this certainly functions. My machine came with the standard splitting ram, which is, I believe, 22 tons of force. And I opted for the 6-way splitting wedge. I knew that a 4-way would just be making logs that were way too heavy, way too big. The wedge is adjustable. We have a hydraulic ram here, so the wedge moves up and down as you need it to. It's easily removable, so I do have customers that want logs only split in half for boiler wood. An easy thing to pop this right off. The saw is a harvester saw. It uses an 18HX bar with a hydraulic motor. It's really very fast and efficient. It's easily removed and reinstalled, easily tensioned. We have the Sawdust chute, and what else? Another stabilization jack back here, and we have a hand crank winch which raises and lowers the conveyor. All right, that's it for the overview. So let's talk about the conveyor first. I like the integrated conveyor. It's excellent for taking this machine on site to do processing work. The 12-foot length, it gives me enough height. I could pull a dump trailer under here, a pickup truck, a wagon, whatever needs to go underneath here. Or like in my case, I just dump it on the ground because I have to sort this. The conveyor, the belt, you can adjust the tension. You can adjust the tracking. Each end of the rollers is adjustable. So we have, you can loosen these bolts. We have the bearing here, and the adjustments are here. The first thing I don't like is that it's a belt. Now, as I said, it functions. I haven't had too much trouble with it. I did rip it one time, and as you can see right here, if I can not fall on my butt here, right here is a repair job. One bar got extremely mangled and I had to cut it off. It tore the belt, and that was because down here we have a gap, and this gap, that needs to be closed up somehow. I think at some point I'm going to put some heavy-duty rubber in there, something that will keep wood from falling into this gap here. Because what happened was somehow a piece got down in here and stabbed its way in here, and when these bars came around, it hooked the bar. I didn't see it happen, but I'm assuming that when it hooked the bar, it twisted everything up, bent the bar, ripped the belt. The other thing I don't like is, because it's a belt, we have these rollers here. Generally, they're fine, but periodically wood will fall in here into this space and get stuck between the belt and the roller. And then you have it bouncing and shattering, and you have to stop, back it up, get the pieces out. The wheels are for when you're deploying it so that you can pull it along the ground. And you look at my other video on setting it up and you can see how that works. Conveyor is very simple to collapse and extend. It's really quite a nice piece of equipment. The wedge, because you can move it up and down, is very, very convenient. So I can center it on a big log. Normally I keep it all the way at the bottom for normal processing, because then the bottom piece and the next piece, always the same size. The top piece will sometimes be larger, in which case I can grab it and throw it back into the splitter box and resplit it real quick. The next thing I really like is the gauge. I made a little modification. I put a quick release handle on the gauge. It originally came with two 3/8 bolts, but then you had to have a wrench to adjust it. Another modification that I made to the gauge was I marked the bar in inches. So I go all the way up to 21 inches, and that's about maximum. Can't really go any farther than that, but that's a good way to get you close, get your cut adjusted. You can start off really close and then just tweak it. The splitting ram is a 22-ton ram, and it's actually quite fast. The entire cycle time is 7 seconds. Sometimes you have to move a log around while it's up here on the infeed. They give you a nice little step here next to the fuel tank. There's a gusset here that you can stand on, and you can stand along the frame. This is non-skid tape that I put on here. This is a must. If you're going to have one of these machines, you need to put non-skid tape anywhere you're going to step, because, as I'm sure you know, working around a wood yard, if it's even a little bit wet, just paint alone will be really, really slippery. Don't fall and kill yourself or get seriously injured. Get some non-skid tape, get it on there, and it will save you a lot of pain and suffering. The machine is pretty fast. It will do about 1 cord per hour, and you can keep up that pace if you have help. So if you've got another person loading logs onto the live deck, and yet another person clearing the chute here, which gets jammed up pretty frequently, then if you have that help, then it goes quick. You can just keep on moving, and this thing will run all day long, non-stop. The live deck does not have any kind of dogs or anything here or there, and consequently, when you get your last log of the live deck gets right here, there's a space between this gear and the end of the arm. This space right in here, a log will sit right in here, and when you operate the live deck moves, the chain is moving, and the log will spin backwards, because there's nothing to help it along and push it over this little hump here. This chain is just smooth on the top. So it should either have some kind of dog here, and by dog I mean like a sprocket or something that will grab hold of the log, that last log, and help it go into the infeed. Or the live deck chain should have teeth. And it wouldn't take much. It wouldn't take much at all. Just a few teeth on this thing would be enough to push it over the end. Unfortunately, there's no room right here. See that? There's no room in here for a tooth to get around. So I have a solution that I think I'm going to try. That will be a separate video. Another thing I don't like is the infeed trough. Again, these teeth, they could stand to be a little bit larger. They could stand to be a little bit taller, maybe a little bit wider. Just enough that it can grab some crooked, unruly logs. Once the log reaches the end of the infeed, we encounter this toothed piece right across the end of the infeed trough. Generally speaking, it functions. However, when you get to the end of the log, this needs some kind of a dog or something on the end here to keep the logs moving. This has the unfortunate habit of causing your log to either roll into the saw or roll away from the saw because it's kind of flat. This would probably be better if it was curved. I had to repair this once, and I should have thought about it a little bit, but maybe if that was curved it would be better. I don't know, but a dog here at the end on that last sprocket, or if the sprocket was a little farther this way, I'm not sure. There should be some better way of doing that, and I'm sure if I spent the money on a bigger machine it would have all that. But this is this is one of the smaller machines, so you have to take your compromises. Another weak point on this machine is the bar oil pump. Now the bar oil pump is essentially a small fuel pump. It's made for lightweight oils and fuels. It's not really meant for bar oil. When I got this machine, this pump was intermittent. Sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. It was driving me crazy. When they mounted this pump, they took the ground wire and they mashed the ground wire underneath the plastic housing of the pump, and they put this bolt through. But nobody ever cleaned the paint off the frame, so the ground wire didn't make connection. That was a manufacturing oversight. The first pump I had broke. I don't know why, it just quit working. If I had to take a guess, it was probably a piece of debris in the bar oil reservoir. Got into the pump and killed it. So this is pump number 2. What they want you to do is they want you to adjust your oil flow with this petcock here. Anybody that knows anything about pumps knows that you do not put your flow control on the inlet of your pump. It just really is a bad way to do it. In order to keep the pump from failing again, I installed a filter. So this is just an automotive inline fuel filter. And so far, it's been working. Now that the ground issue was taken care of and I put this filter on, it's been working really well. But bottom line, this should be a gear pump, which is a positive pressure pump, and your control valve for flow should be on the outlet. Again, perhaps bigger machines would have a better pump, I don't know. The location of the hour meter, while it's nice to have it right here, the location is way too hot. Now in the wintertime, in cool weather, it's not a big deal. But in the summertime, when it's over 90 degrees and you're running this machine, this entire plate that all the controls are mounted on is cooking. It's like sitting in front of an oven. It's so hot because of the hydraulics. This little meter cannot tolerate that kind of heat. I already lost 1 meter. It was just too hot and it killed it. So now my hours are off. I think it would have been better to mount the hour meter somewhere on the engine, or near the engine, at least somewhere where it was not exposed to so much heat. When the ram is extended, it is not covered. In other words, the piston is exposed. If you have a momentary lapse of concentration and you saw off a log and your ram is still extended, the log falls right on the ram piston. That's not good. It's also really, really hard to extract that log from behind the splitter plate. On bigger machines, these are all covered. And again, this is a smaller machine, so you can't expect every single feature to be available. In a previous video, you saw me remove a piece of this green shroud. Green shroud is there to help control the sawdust. When the saw comes down, it helps contain the sawdust and the oil spray, and that's great. But what they did was, instead of just putting the shroud straight across, they ran it at an angle, or they put a radius there and they ran it all the way down to the bottom, and it would snag on logs, and that had to go. As I mentioned before with the conveyor, this should really be a chain type conveyor and not a belt. I think the chain is what most of the other firewood processor manufacturers use, and there's a reason for that. It's more reliable, it's less trouble. If it breaks, you can fix it. If I tear this belt, now granted, ripping this entire belt in half would be, you'd really have to do something to tear this belt in half, but I've already ripped it and damaged it. And you can't repair the belt itself, at least not that I know of. I wouldn't know how to do it. So if it were damaged badly enough, you'd have to replace the whole thing, and that would be expensive. Not to mention, you're not going to just buy a belt that already has the metal bars attached. You're going to have to cut and drill and rivet these bars in place, and that alone is a lot of work. Anyway, so the conveyor would be better if it was a chain drive conveyor. So that's all I'm going to say on the conveyor. I think other than that, it functions. A minor issue with the saw, when you're dealing with large logs, and by large, what I mean with this machine, an 18-inch log is about as big as you want to go. It'll cut a 20-inch log, but it doesn't like it. It's the saw will barely go through it because of the the length of the bar. But when you have a really big log like that, every once in a while that log will fall and it will land right here on this hydraulic line. Luckily, it hasn't broken the line yet. There are a few nicks in it right here. Routinely, a log will hit this and knock the fitting loose, and then you have to go back and retighten the fittings. So that's an issue, and I don't know what, if anything, could be done about it. Possibly some kind of a shroud, but then you're adding more metal in here, and again, with these machines, you can have anything you want as long as you have the money to pay for it. I'm going to say this is not really a big issue, but it is just an observation that logs will fall on this and knock it loose. So you have to be prepared to tighten it up. It could use one more stabilization jack right here, right behind the operator platform, or somewhere in this vicinity. You've got 3 jacks and one spot without a jack, so I think really this could use one. The operator platform, if this operator platform wasn't here, I suspect they would have put a jack right here. I don't know for sure, but they should have made some arrangement to put one more jack in this area, just to give it a little more stability. I would make it so the sawdust chute would fold down, or at least be hinged in such a way that at the end of it would fold under. The reason is, when you're driving down the road with this, I don't know if you can see this, when you're driving down the road, that looks like a lot. So I'm always looking in my rear view mirror at cars going by and like, am I getting too close with that thing? Because it really sticks out a lot. So it's just something to think about. Now, this is another issue that I'm going to have to address somehow. Right at the end of this channel, I'm not sure what happened to the audio for this clip. I believe my camera malfunctioned. Anyway, what we're looking at here is the track that the splitter ram moves in. Right here at the very end, right in front of the wedge, debris gets impacted in the channel and it needs to be removed. I've chiseled this out before with a hand chisel and a hammer, and it's kind of a pain. What I'm going to do is make a long chisel that I can stand up on the operator platform and reach down in there with a long chisel and bang that stuff out of there. It's in there so hard that you can't remove it otherwise. You have to knock it out with a chisel. So that's a bit of an annoyance that needs to be addressed. I don't believe there's any way to put something in there to prevent that from happening. I think it's just the nature of the beast. The speed that it cuts and splits is really pretty remarkable. It is one of the smaller machines. Granted, it's not the smallest machine you can get, but it's more of a mid-range machine, and it does really, really well. Would I buy this exact model again? I'm not sure. I really like it. I like the way you can transport it easily. It sets up on site very easily. That's a big thing for me because I can take it to customers and do on-site processing. However, if I was going to buy it again, the things that I would do differently, I would get the heaviest tonnage splitting ram that I could get. Now that also would entail a more powerful engine. I would get the diesel engine for sure. My tractor is diesel. My truck is diesel. It would be nice if this was a diesel. And now I have to make a special trip to the gas station to fill up gas cans. So that's a bit of a hassle, but it's a small price to pay for what I'm getting. And I would get an 8-way wedge, maybe even an 8 and a 12 instead of, in this case, a 4 or a 2 and a 6. I would get 2, which is just the vertical piece, an 8 and a 12. That would kind of be ideal. Having the ability to split wood in smaller diameter would be a big benefit. The 6-way, I do wind up doing a lot of resplitting with this because of the size of the logs that I have, which are typical for my area. I get logs up to 18 inches in diameter. 14, 15-inch logs, that would be ideal. That's the ideal size for this machine. Splits them just right. The other thing that I would get would be an auto return valve for the splitter. So with this splitter valve, in order to return the splitter ram, you have to push it and hold it. There's no detent on this. It was an expensive option, which is basically, I don't understand that, but it wanted, I think it was like an extra $600 for just having a detent on there, which would involve, it would just be a different valve. I kind of almost wonder if this valve couldn't be modified. I don't know. So having an auto return valve would be a tremendous help, and it probably would have saved me a lot of grief. Overall, I'm very pleased with the machine. It served me well. I've done hundreds and hundreds of cords of firewood already. It's easy to move around. I can move it around. I can even move it around my property here without collapsing the conveyor. In other words, without stowing it for transport. Because if I'm just moving it from here to there or there to there, I'm not going very far. It's well built. The splitter box is very solid. The splitter box, I think, has a lifetime warranty on it. It's very easy to maintain. Just about everything has a grease fitting on it. Everything is easily replaceable. All the parts for it are off-the-shelf parts. So that's a big thing, especially for me, is being able to work on my own equipment and having parts readily available. This was my very first firewood processor. It may not be my last. I'm seriously considering what it would take to upgrade to a bigger machine. A bigger machine, I could process a lot more wood a lot faster, but then at the expense of not being able to transport it as easily. Not knowing what I was getting into when I bought this, I didn't know all the questions to ask. Hopefully you find this useful, and if you're going to purchase a processor, you can look at this video and kind of get an idea of some of the things that I've noticed, and hopefully that helps you make a decision when you go to purchase one for yourself. If you found this useful, I would really appreciate a like. I would also appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel. I've got more videos coming, hopefully more useful stuff. Thank you very much and have a great day.